In the end, all this is strictly universal equality in a precise sense. The proof is a proof for anybody without exception who accepts the primitive choice and the logical rules. So we have choice, consequences, equality, universality. In fact, we have here the paradigm of classical revolutionary politics, the goal of which was explicitly justice, under the generic name communism. One has first to accept a fundamental choice, that is the first freedom, a fundamental choice between the two ways and the two places, revolutionary way and conservative way, proletarian or bourgeoisie, and so on. One has then to accept the consequences of one's choice, that is, organization, hard struggle, sacrifice, no freedom of opinions and style of life, but discipline. And the result is not a democratic state in the common sense, but, as you know, dictatorship of proletariat in order to crush the resistance of enemies. And at the same time, all that is presented as completely universal, because the goal is not the power of a particular class or group, but the end of all classes and inequalities, and finally the end of the state as such. In this conception, which is the conception during a long and probably finished sequence, democracy is in fact the name for two completely different things. It is first, as Lenin has said, democracy, a form of state, the democratic state, with elections, deputies, constitutional government, and so on. And secondly, it is a form of mass action. It is popular or active democracy with great meetings, demonstrations, riots, insurrections, and so on. In the first sense, democracy has no direct relation to revolutionary politics, that is, no direct relation with justice. In the second sense, democracy is not a norm or a goal. It is a means for popular active presence in the political field. Democracy is not the political truth, but one of the means to find the political truth. It is, for example, very clear in a text of probably Mao Zedong, the title of which is Decision in 60 Points, written during the summer of 1967, at the beginning of the Cultural Revolution. In this decision, Mao Zedong writes that young people, young revolutionaries, young activists have to learn the distinction between truth and falsity in the action itself, in the movement. And that is always across many troubles, across divisions and difficulties and struggles, that we become conscious of the new political truth. And that is a sort of collective experiment of novelty beyond the state order. So the great democracy, it was the name during all the cultural revolution, great democracy, with gigantic meetings, thousands of new organizations, millions of political posters, the famous désastre, violent polemics, armed riots, and so on. The aim of all that is to learn the right politics, to learn the new way, to be on the way for political truths. But for philosophy, democracy, as we have seen at the beginning of my lecture, is also a condition of a new status of discourse. A status which is without sacred place, without sacred book, without king, priest, prophet, or God as guarantee of legitimacy. So we can propose a new hypothesis to fully understand the obscure relationship of philosophy, politics, and democracy. From the point of view of philosophy, democracy is neither a norm or a law, nor it is a goal. Democracy is only one of the possible means of popular emancipation. But discipline of consequences and maybe dictatorship can also be among the means of emancipation, exactly as the constraints of mathematics are also a condition for philosophy. So we have something like in my second diagram. In this second diagram, we have no direct relation of the three terms, democracy, philosophy, and politics. It's a necessity to insert, if you want, a fourth term. My name for this term is truth, but we can find other names. For example, I think that in the conception of Deleuze, the name which is at the place of truth is probably life, creative life. And if we are in the disposition of Heidegger, the name is being, and so on. So there is a proper philosophical name which is something like the name, the supplementary name. The supplementary name with other consequence, no direct relationship within the three terms. Philosophy and truth are in relation by the concept of consequences of truth, consequences of a truth event, if you want. Truth and politics are in relation by the concept of justice, because for philosophy, justice is the name of a true politics. Politics and democracy as a relationship, as democracy is means for a true politics, can be a means for true politics. And democracy and philosophy as in relation, because democracy is a condition of philosophy itself. So we have a complex disposition in which the four terms are in a diagram with different relationships. And that is why we cannot go directly from philosophy to democracy. And yet, democracy is a condition of philosophy.